Welcome to room 5452, an executive suite at the Fontainebleau Las Vegas, featuring a large living and dining area, a pointlessly large shower, one window, and 2 toilets. But before we dive into the executive suite, I was traveling with my friend Vinny Chenz of the 7 Out podcast on this trip, and he stayed in a noble suite, and I'd like to show you that first. And now welcome to room 3643, a noble suite on the 36th floor. As you can see, this is a strip view room with the sphere playing a dominant role in the Vegas skyline from this vantage from all the way on the north end of the strip. Just off the front door is a powder room with a large vanity and more than enough towels for everyone. Despite the high-end finishes throughout the hotel, I just have to comment on how the toilet appears to be a super low-end builder's model. But calling this a powder room was perhaps a bit hasty, as this is a full bathroom having its own shower. But it's of course not the only bathroom in the suite. It's nothing fancy, but certainly nothing to sneeze at either. Out in the hall, there's a small closet. I'd say it was a coat closet, but there's no rod or hangers. A good place to store your luggage, I suppose. Turning on the lights and we can get a glimpse of the bar and living room, but I really wanted to check out the view next, mainly because I had seen a lot about the sphere on YouTube, but not in person. At least in my opinion, it and the Encore are about the only things nice enough to bother looking at. The giant gaping construction site and the Las Vegas Convention Center ain't exactly pretty, though it's probably much better at night, to be fair. But anyway, we're here to check out the room, and over by the window is a love seat-sized couch, an awkwardly shaped coffee table, more about those later, and a tiny armchair. The wet bar is quite a notable feature and very large to boot. We'll take a closer look at the food and bev on offer back in my room, as they're the same in both. This being a true suite, the bedroom is separated from the living room by a heavy door. It features a large king-size bed and a table and chair set up awkwardly crammed in by the windows. The noble suite is pretty oddly shaped, kind of like a fan. That's to fit into the curved facade of the building, of course, but it makes the room layout a bit awkward. You can see on this plan from Fontainebleau's own site that the furniture arrangement was supposed to be a bit different, but I don't think the way it was designed would have fit in the space in reality. That is, unless the noble suite comes in a variety of sizes, but it only lists 937 square feet, so I don't really know. In any case, it seems like they wanted to have a table and 2 chairs, but they couldn't decide where to put it other than in this tight corner next to the bed. And same with the bedroom TV, which looks incredibly out of place as it's partially blocking the windows and not really anchored to anything. Now, the room is spacious, and overall I like the decor. The palette of blues, grays, and white goes well with the gold and browns, and it has an understated but luxurious feel. Also a very French vibe, which is clearly on brand. The carpet is a bit 1990s Marriott though, but the wallpaper is very nice. The bedroom has another one of these tall closets with 1 shelf and no hangers. I'm really thinking that they just forgot to finish those during construction. Directly across from it is more what you'd expect, lots of hanging space and all the usual hotel stuff. Again, more details on that stuff later, in my closet, which was pretty much the same. This leads us into the main bathroom, which is open to the bedroom, having no door of its own. I really don't have a problem with this sort of thing, as the toilet does have its own private space. In my opinion, a door is always better because when open, its functionality is no different than this arrangement, so why not give the guest an option for complete privacy? So as we saw, there's a sizable double vanity and an even more sizable shower. The toilet room is small but functional, though needlessly dark. Think aiming. One thing I'd like to point out is that this large shower has 2 tiny shower heads crammed in at one end. And if you think this rainfall head shouldn't be called tiny, check out the showers in my Amman video. Though the immense shower looks good from like a YouTube-y, Instagram-y kind of standpoint, really half the space is pointless, as you'd be standing 6 feet away from the nearest stream of warm water if you were at the other end. Body sprays and more elaborate fittings would do well here. On the vanity are a bit more than the typical crap hotel amenities, so major points there, and we'll take a better look at those later. Oh, and I didn't even notice that we had a view of actual greenery in the form of the Wynn Golf Club, behind which the sphere was plonked down. That's nice, but what really grabs your attention is this area. Also, Resorts World is just ugly, especially compared to what it could have been. And I'm afraid this is the only time in the video we'll look at the pool deck, as the pool was closed due to a delay of opening. But it wouldn't have been the place to be anyhow, as it was around 45 degrees in Vegas this February weekend. And just to clarify, that's 45 degrees Fahrenheit, as in the summer it could just as easily be 45 Celsius. From up here, the pool deck and particularly the pool themselves look small. They're big in general, but I mean as compared to the number of guest rooms in the hotel. And if you're not familiar with Vegas, we're about here on a map. Only Sahara and the Strat are farther north, and it's right across the road from Circus Circus. In fact, it's about the same distance to the Golden Nugget downtown as it is to the Bellagio. Meaning that if you're planning to hit up shows or restaurants at MGM Grand, Bellagio, Aria, and so forth, you'll probably be taking a cab or Uber everywhere. Or pedo bike, which sounds bad, but was actually kind of fun. The hotel's a bit out of the way, is my point. Also, the Fontainebleau is interesting in that it's a hotel that was under construction for almost 20 years and which many people thought would never open. It stood as an unoccupied ghost building for years. It's a kind of interesting story, and Jake from Bright Sun Films made a couple of good videos about both the background info and the hotel as it exists today. Links in the description. I think the repeated redesigns and changed plans account for some of the quirks in the layout, design, HVAC, and plumbing in the rooms. It's a 2020s interior veneered over a building design in the 2000s. So let's rewind a little and get back to my room, an executive suite on the 54th floor. It has massive double doors, which I suppose makes moving furniture a breeze and definitely gives the suite a sort of premium look from the outside. Those give way to a massive foyer area with a couple of mirrors and a small decorative table. To the right, past this toilet room, is the bedroom featuring a king bed and a couple of nightstands. It's all you need really, and though some may disagree, I personally like that it's nestled away from the front doors and the windows. Makes for a real quiet cave-like space for sleeping. Across from the bed is a 55-inch TV and a dresser. From there we move on to the bathroom, which like the Noble Suite has no door, but also in this case no toilet. We'll take a look at those soon. And the shower in here is downright huge at about 6 feet square, which doesn't even count the sizable tub behind it. The tub itself is about 30 inches, 76 centimeters wide, and 64 inches, 162 centimeters long, making it generous for one person but cramped for two. As you can see, it's just a normal tub with no jets or anything. Not even a shower hand piece. In fact, the only shower head in this massive area is this tiny thing, which you can get at Home Depot for under $50. Considering what this room costs per night, and for sure I'll be getting to that, and the amount of square footage dedicated to it, the shower is severely underwhelming. I mean, the reason for a huge shower is A, so you can fit multiple people in there for a good time, or B, so you can really stretch out and relax while being bombarded with water from all angles. One tiny shower head in a large room just means the air stays cold and any of your shower guests will be left shivering. The vanity area is quite nice, and look, you even get a specific cloth just for beauty. It's very well lit, including lighting integrated into the mirror, and it comes with decent amenities. Extra towels and a hairdryer are on the shelves underneath. Out past the bedroom, we get to the real, as the French say, piece of resistance. The main living area is surrounded on two sides by a massive sofa with plenty of throw cushions, and boy were those necessary. Most of it faces a very large 76-inch TV and a credenza with extra storage. There's even a small love seat, so this area will comfortably seat at least 8 people. And clearly that's the number they had in mind, as there's a 6-foot-long, 1.8-meter table with seating for 8. But there's one thing a bit lacking here for a modern hotel in the Vegas Strip. Can you spot it? And no, it's not the weirdly placed desk in the middle of the room. Turning this way, we're now pointing back towards the front door. If you were throwing a party in this suite, guests would come in through this hallway rather than your bedroom, conveniently stopping at the full wet bar on the way. And over here is the guest bath or powder room, consisting of a toilet and heavy marble pedestal sink. Unlike the cheaper Noble Suite, it lacks a second shower. From there, we'll head back past the foyer, which is flanked by a pair of closets, to take a look at the toilet room that's off the bedroom. I mean, it's fine, just your standard toilet and a trash can. What's weird is that it's about the same size as the powder room, only this one doesn't have its own sink. The floor plan is unusual, and I completely understand it if you got a bit turned around. Here's a diagram from Fontainebleau's site. What you might notice right away is that the hallways and foyer account for a disproportionately large amount of space, while the bedroom is almost an afterthought. Again, I actually like the cloistered bedroom, but it's still a bizarre choice with this much square footage to play with. Speaking of which, as usual, I took some measurements just to make sure that the FB's marketing materials match reality. And indeed, they list this suite as being 1,138 square feet, 106 square meters, while I measured this area alone to be about 1,032 square feet, or 96 square meters. That includes some dead space here, but doesn't include these areas outside the yellow box, so it's probably near enough as makes no difference to what they advertised. Of course, you'll notice one thing on this floor plan which I alluded to earlier. The Noble Suite had wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling windows, while the Executive Suite has this little nook. And this comes down to the actual structure of the building. While the facade looks like an uninterrupted wall of glass, this section is composed mostly of concrete underneath. Presumably this is a shear wall or some other structural necessity. Speaking of the hotel building, let's get out of the room and take a look at the rest of the place. The spa, called Lapis, guys, it's not the worst layout for a typeface, but it's pretty bad. Sorry, that's Lapis. Accessible on the second floor, offers some of the best public facilities you'll find in Vegas, and the staff here were great, extremely attentive and friendly, and more than eager to give newcomers a detailed tour. Upon entering, you'll check in at this kiosk and receive a bracelet that's used to access your assigned locker. There are dedicated men and women's areas off their respective locker rooms, but we spent most of our time at the well-kitted out facilities in the co-ed area. In the middle of it all, there's a large heated hot tub that's more the size of a small pool. A very large and very hot sauna with a TV where they have occasional off-goose ceremonies. Yeah, that's what it is. Kind of the opposite of that is the snow shower cubicle, seen being enjoyed here by some guy. There's an herbal inhalation room, which sounds far more awesome than it is. Just picture throwing some rosemary and sage at a sauna and you're there. It does have one of the best buttons though. There's an extremely cold plunge pool. I didn't spend enough time in the sauna to make this seem like anything but an awful idea, so I didn't go in. The 4 gravity chairs were rather enjoyable. We can see some random man utilizing one now in a very serious manner. There was also a salt chamber, having walls lined with Himalayan salt, I think. It was completely occupied the entire time we were there, so I didn't get any footage of it. Upstairs from the co-ed section are the treatment rooms, with a waiting area overlooking the pool below. I had some kind of massage. It was good, nothing spectacular, and it was sort of the same with the vibe in the treatment rooms. Not exciting or particularly luxurious in design, but nothing to complain about, I suppose. The spa wasn't too busy overall, but there were enough people around that I didn't want to be a bother by pointing a camera all over the place, so you'll have to excuse the lack of extensive footage. Oh, and whatever you do, this is very important because it's on numerous signs, don't poop or pee in the pools. This includes diarrhea, for any of you thinking you can get away with sneaking in some diarrhea. This is an adults area, incidentally, so I'm not sure who this part is aimed at. I mean, if someone's intent on explicitly shitting in the pool, a sign ain't gonna stop them, but a sign isn't exactly gonna stop a horrible accident either. And that topic segues us neatly into the next segment of the video, the restaurants. We hit Don's Prime, the traditional steakhouse, on a Saturday night. It was crowded with standing room only at the bar while we waited for our table. Very nice aesthetic and good drinks. It wasn't long before we were seated, but we did have reservations, which were a must that night. The bread was a good sign right off the bat. Crispy on the outside, warm and pillow soft on the inside, served hot. It was accompanied by a pair of soft pretzel sticks that were also quite good. The Caesar salad was classically done, delicious, but it was a little dry. The oven-braised gnocchi was good, not great. The steak tartare was excellent, though the portion was really small, being basically 2 bites for $36. Though I really have no right to complain about price. They had both an olive-fed Wagyu steak from Kagawa and an A5 graded one from Kyushu. I got 4 ounces of each to compare for $300 and $240 respectively. I mean, I'd never had olive-fed Wagyu, so I had to see if it was better. And it was, though arguably not worth it, but hey, it was for science. Also, who puts a bunch of sauce around an otherwise immaculate cut of steak? To each their own, but I think the general consensus is to put sauce, mustard, wasabi, salt, or whatever else off on the side and let the beef stand on its own. What's weirder is that Vin got the far less fancy, but still fancy, Snake River Farms American Wagyu, and his plate came unadorned. On the side, we'd ordered whipped potatoes and cream spinach, but received butternut squash. No big deal, as our server resolved that pretty quickly. Oh, and a sole meunière? I don't know how to pronounce that.
Sole meunière.
Just to try something other than steak. It was quite tasty. For dessert, this giant carrot cake. I love carrot cake as a general rule, and this did not disappoint. The only thing that was a bit of a letdown was the service. About halfway through our meal, our waiter disappeared for a while. Then he charged the wrong tab to my card, and I guess if I were so inclined, I could have got this meal at a big discount. The actual total for our food was $934 before tip. The next night was reservations at Mother Wolf, Fontainebleau's traditional Italian joint. It's got a pleasant ambiance, hitting the Roman atmosphere maybe a little too on the nose, but in a very upscale Vegas way. Which is to say that I liked it, though the music was a little more American pop than old school Italian. Just like with Don's Prime, the bread set things off incredibly well. We also ordered what's probably the best prosciutto I've ever had and one of the best burrata. They absolutely hit it out of the park with those. But this. We took a chance on this as it was under the pizza section and arrived looking nothing like the style of pizza we were expecting. However, it's one of the best things we'd both eaten in a long time. Absolutely amazing and the best thing at the Fontainebleau in my opinion. It's nothing crazy ingredient-wise. Mortadella arranged like flowers and festooned with pistachio, with ricotta and lemon buried underneath, holding the whole thing together inside a marvelously crispy, crusty dough. Forget the multi-$100 Wagyu steaks and get this $30 pile of maize balls instead. We also got the Supli al telefono risotto croquettes, and if we'd had those first, they probably would have been deemed outstanding, but following that pistachio mortadella thing, they were very good. Up next was a rigattoncini with oxtail ragu and pecorino, a rigatoni with guanciale pepper and pecorino, and, you'll never guess, a rigatoni carbonara. They were all very well prepared and delicious, but nothing so memorable that we craved it again the next day. Dessert was a tiramisu and a budino al cioccolato. Tiramisu is also one of my favorite desserts, and this was absolutely top-notch. The budino was no slouch either, and despite being quite full, we just about finished both of them. Oh, and we had planned on switching to wine for the entrees, but the SPQR was so good that we just got another round of those instead. Highly recommended. Komodo was by far the trendiest of all the 3 places we hit up for dinner. Incredibly large dining room, high ceilings, and a live DJ. I know this is going to sound weird, but the decor gave off the vibe of, dude, what if a tiki bar was also a nightclub, but like in China and totally from the 2020s? Like all the establishments at Fontainebleau, it's expensively done, and the designer clearly had a vision. The gimmick at Komodo is that you put in your order all at once, and stuff is brought to your table as it's ready in no particular order. I mean, service was impeccable, so I'm sure they'd make accommodations, but that's what we were told is standard. First up was Korean fried chicken. It was good, but, somewhere between a Korean version of P.F. Chang's and a top-notch hole-in-the-wall place in Queens. Kinda average is what I'm saying. Some salmon tacos. Vin was impressed, but I liked them a lot. The fried rice was BNT. Don't worry about the acronym, but the B stands for bland. Money bag dumplings. Good, not amazing. This wasn't really good at all. The spicy bluefin tuna maki. Our server described it along the lines of something crispy rice. Usually that's sushi rice that's crisped up on a pan or griddle and delicious. In this case, it was just a normal maki roll coated in what can only be described as Rice Krispies. It wasn't the actual breakfast cereal, but it sure tasted like it, sugar and all. The truffle honey salmon, quite good. And the main event was a premium omakase platter, which arrived with an unexpected amount of dry ice, purely for decor. It's probably wrong to compare this to the best omakase experience I've had in Vegas at Wakuda in the Venetian. That was a semi-private room with the chef right behind the counter, presenting and preparing super high-quality ingredients with charisma and finesse. To be fair, I was also quite drunk by the end. This, dry ice and actual ice aside, would have been more at home served in a boat in Midtown Manhattan. What I mean is that the fish was of high quality, the rice was more than acceptable, and I wasn't really disappointed. It's just that it's not one of those can't miss things. They got a little too fiddly with the presentation, and I came off with the impression that truffle, caviar, and gold leaf are, in their minds, what makes for premium sushi. The sake was wonderful, though not exactly cheap. In summary, despite sushi being one of my top 3 favorite foods and the love I have for East Asian flavors in general, Komodo was just okay. Service was on point, but the atmosphere was teetering on the edge of being a club. And the food was good, but not to the point where I'd recommend you make a special trip for it. If you're staying at the FB, it's worth a try though. We also tried out the food court for lunch, grabbing a couple of sandwiches from Capon's and a couple of slices from, logically enough, Miami Slice. The Capon's coupe was so good that I went back the next day to grab another. The chicken was crispy on the outside, juicy on the inside, good bacon, and though it says ranch schmear on the menu, it should probably say dill explosion. The blackjack was a solid truffle aioli burger, and I'd definitely get another of these next time I'm at the FB. Not groundbreaking, but the potato sticks are a solid addition. On the Miami Slice side, the margarita was a step above most hotel pizza. They do a crust that stands up to scrutiny, but not amazing. I'm a sucker for mushroom truffle pizza, so this was right in my wheelhouse, and if that's your thing, I'd recommend it 100%. Vin tried El Bagel without me for breakfast one day while I was still fast asleep, and reported back a resounding, it wasn't great. More for the purposes of this review than anything, I got my hair cut at the IGK Salon. I mean, I did need a haircut, I just didn't need a $150 haircut, plus tax and tip. A shout out to the people working at the salon, they were super friendly and I had a nice chat with the lady that cut my hair. But to be honest, there's a couple of people at the Supercuts near me that do just as good a job, if not better, for Supercuts prices. So don't be like me, get your haircut at home before you leave. Before dinner one night, we decided to pop into Azul, FB's Mezcal Bar on the first floor. Of all the restaurants and bars we'd seen, this was probably my favorite as far as interior design goes. Weirdly, it was almost completely empty and the carpets were being vacuumed despite it being 7 p.m. about 2 hours after opening. Then again, it was a Sunday. They of course have a large selection of mezcals and tequilas, and a good number of house cocktails on the menu. I opted for a Sunday service because I found the ginger interesting, and Vin went for a jade rabbit for the mystery of green chili and shiitake mushroom. Both were excellent, and I'd get mine again in a heartbeat. We were chatting with the bartender about mezcals, and he seemed to be extremely knowledgeable and enthusiastic about the subject, so we left the next round up to him. I don't know how he got it so right, but he made completely different drinks for each of us, which were exactly to both our individual tastes. I absolutely loved mine, and Vin absolutely loved his, but we tried each other's and thought they were just okay. If you're at Azul and Steven is tending bar, trust his judgment, he's a magician. Nowhere Bar, up on the second floor, offers live music and an Art Deco early 20th century vibe. It's surprisingly small for a live music venue, and it would pretty quickly run out of space to sit and enjoy the music. The band was good, if you like that type of thing, and they've got a pool table. If you've seen any of my other videos, you'll know I usually focus on the room itself as that's the main product of any hotel. We kind of breezed through it before, but I'd like to get into the details a little bit. First off, and this is a minor thing of course, the foyer area looks like they didn't finish decorating it. There are 2 nooks on either side of the entrance that look like they should have, I don't know, something in them. They're recessed outlets for a reason, I'd imagine. I mentioned the diminutive size of the window before, but I guess you're not missing much anyway. This is a mountain view suite and, yeah, there they are. But the most prominent features of the view are the two wings of the Fontainebleau, the Strat's Tower, and a huge brown empty lot. It does look a lot better at night, to be fair. The in-room bar is pretty sizable and includes most everything you'd need for whipping up some drinks. I really like the addition of an empty mini fridge, so if you're more ambitious than I am, you can stock up on beverages from off-premises stores rather than paying the minibar prices. Speaking of which, the minibar offerings are pretty decent. Fever Tree ginger ale rather than Schweppes, 2 kinds of Red Bull, larger bottles of vodka, and tequila. There are mini bottles too, and they're at least reasonably mid to top shelf varieties. I'm generally not a fan of hotel-branded repackaged snacks, but at least these make it clear what you're getting, unlike some other places. Weirdly, they didn't completely restock it before I checked in, as there was one item missing from the fridge, one snack, as well as a bottle of water. I don't think I got charged for any of those, but then again, Fontainebleau hit one of my major pet peeves by ignoring a request for a folio made on the website after I checked out. By the way, the ice bucket is of super high quality and would definitely win a heaviest ice bucket contest. Ice is available just down the hall, which I prefer versus those hotels that require waiting for an order of ice from room service or wherever. Though, unfortunately, coffee is a room service request. You can add no in-room coffee to my list of hotel pet peeves. Especially at higher-end properties, why would you not offer an amenity that even the most basic Holiday Inn provides? Sure, room service coffee is hopefully of much better quality, but first thing in the morning, I'd rather have it fast than good. Heck, just throw a canned coffee in the minibar and I'd be happy. Though, one without vodka in it. And here are the minibar prices as of March 2024 in case you're curious. Not the worst I've ever seen, but not exactly cheap, as you'd expect. Speaking of room service, it was something I didn't think to avail myself of until the last night of our trip, and I searched everywhere in the room for a menu, and there was none. Turns out there's supposed to be this rhombi cubo octahedron relic with QR codes. Vin brought this one up from his room because he described it to me over the phone and I had no idea what in the fuck he was talking about. There's this weird thing shaped like a bow tie that has the room service menu on it. Yeah, what? But if you just search for Fontainebleau Las Vegas room service menu, this should come up. Just remember to put Vegas in the search because in doing research for this video I found that sometimes details for their Miami property would come up otherwise. The living room is adorned with a number of fancy art books. Published by Azul. And I'm not old enough to not think that's funny.
Azul.
Also in the living/dining room are the controls for the drapes. But they're all the way across the room where you wouldn't immediately expect them to be, and the controls aren't super responsive to boot. There are buttons for the drapes next to the bed, but that seems kind of pointless in a windowless bedroom. I guess where I'm going with this is that the room automation isn't all that automated. For a hotel that opened at the very end of 2023 with suites at this price point, it's very conspicuously lacking an in-room tablet or guest's phone app for centralized control. The controls that do exist seem to be scattered around the walls in a haphazard fashion and don't allow the same level of fine-tuning that most modern systems do. Climate control is equally underwhelming. The thermostat is pretty much what you'd get at any run-of-the-mill hotel, except in this suite there are 3 of them. The air handlers also aren't very well hidden, are fairly loud even in the lowest fan setting, and are just at the right height to blow air into your face if you're standing near them or walking past. One of the more annoying things about the arrangement is that they'd periodically reset to a default of a higher blower setting, so I'd have to go around changing them all back to low. Not the biggest problem in the world, just not what you'd get in most $1,600 per night rooms. Speaking of which, I already talked about the lackluster shower, but the shower head dripped like the epitome of a cheap motel for about 20 minutes after I was done using it. That in of itself isn't super noteworthy, but I really believe there's something wrong with the plumbing here. Maybe because construction was started and stopped over the course of 15 years, and plans were cancelled and redrawn so many times that the plumbing ended up being a hodgepodge of pipes that didn't end up fitting into the final vision of the property. The net result being that the toilets and drains gurgled. Like, a lot. I mean, it only happened badly twice in the few nights I was there, but it was really bizarre to see toilets bubbling with air and then flushing themselves. It wasn't super alarming, but it was enough to get me out of bed the first time it happened just to see what the hell was going on. The FB supplies extra toilet paper, but in the huge toilet room off the bedroom, there's not even a shelf or any kind of ledge or cabinet. It just seems weird that they're relegated to leaving the extra teepee on the back of the tank when there's so much extra space in here. And as far as quality, it's nothing above the bare minimum bus station teepee either. Though it was recently brought to my attention that hotels probably use low quality toilet paper because it's easier on the plumbing and sewage systems. I think that's probably fair, as with over 3,600 guest rooms, the FB probably has to get rid of the equivalent of a few dump trucks worth of dumps every day. In contrast to the teepee, let's take a closer look at the bathroom amenities. There are cotton pads and buds in this really nice leatherette box. Next to which is C.O. Bigelow shaving cream, which seems fancy, Marvis whitening mint toothpaste, Marvis strong mint mouthwash, and hotel branded body lotion. The razor is definitely not the most basic either, being an unbranded yet dual bladed design. Just like the toothbrushes, its handle is made out of metal. Looking at them, I figured they were cheap plastic all gilded up with a thin veneer of metallic paint. But no, they're surprisingly heavy and actual metal. Which, I mean, okay, super fancy and all, but I did use one and having metal clatter against my teeth just felt wrong. A+ for effort though. Over by the bathtub are shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. Another very minor hotel pet peeve here, but as a glasses wearer, I can't see shit when I'm in the shower. Identical bottles with this tiny lettering on the caps isn't ideal. And if you're the type that takes off all the caps and goes ham on the products, you'll quickly forget which is which. Unusually, they do provide a bath glove, but more of a pad. Not something I use, but good to know it's there. On the upside, right after checking in, I did the usual thing of shining a black light on all the areas that you'd desire to be well cleaned in a hotel. The housekeeping staff seems to be on their game. I know this looks bad, but the spots you're seeing everywhere are either towel lint or cleaning fluid. The less desirable stuff shows up more greenish yellow and more streaky or splashy than this. It wasn't just the bathroom, the remotes and phones seemed to be pretty much spotless as well. The lighting and curtain control panels were likewise clean. The only questionable thing I could find was on the inside of the bedroom door, but that's just as likely to be cleaning fluid as anything else. The bed is obviously one of the most important things in a hotel room, and this one was quite comfortable, though the pillows were the super floppy type that seemed to be the norm almost everywhere. I ended up sleeping on a triple stack because they compressed down to the height of a normal firmish pillow. I said earlier that the bedroom is dark and cave-like, being sequestered off to the side like it is. Part of that is due to this massive and solid sliding door that seals it off from the entrance foyer. It's got a nice dampened action to it, soft closing and opening at either end of travel. With that closed, any guests you have over can go left and straight into the living dining area, from which there's a normal door to the bedroom. As we saw before, there are drape and lighting controls next to the bed, and they're backlit so you can tell what's what at night. In fact, all the panels in the suite are backlit, a must when you can't feel the controls. Though now that I think about it, probably kind of difficult if you're a non-English speaking tourist. Anywho, below the controls are 2 line voltage outlets and a whopping 4 USB outlets. On the other side of the bed is a cordless phone, as well as all the same controls and ports. I really like the bedside sconces as well. Actually, the brass sculpture above the headboard is pretty attractive too, and nicely lit from below by LED strips behind the headboard. Back out in the living room, I just want to complain briefly about the extravagant couch. It looks great in photos and video, and is obviously quite big, though not where it counts. The back isn't very high, and the seat isn't terribly deep. The back is also super hard, so it's good that they provide 8 throw cushions, 5 of which I crammed into the corner for some lounging around. The couch is also technically too big for the space, as it sticks past the bedroom door by a couple of inches. Speaking of lounging around, the coffee table looks cool, but it's both super heavy and super far away. I brought the end table over from next to the love seat just to have somewhere to put my drink. It seems like super nitpicky stuff, but it's an example of design taking precedence over function. Another example of that is the uncomfortable love seat and the desk behind it. Fortunately, there's an immense dining table behind me because the desk is small and cluttered. It is fitted with a couple USB sockets and a regular outlet though. Maybe a desk isn't important to some of you, but I tend to have to work a lot when on vacation. As we check out some of the TV offerings using the fairly laggy and sometimes unresponsive remote, They did include a couple more USB ports and another standard receptacle right under the TV. Perfect for my ever-present Roku or any other devices you might have in your travel arsenal. There's a decent movie selection, including some in-theater titles, but they're $20 to $25 a pop. There are also a lot of kids' titles, the movies being priced the same, and single episodes at about $4 as in this example of The Legend of the Gurgling. If anyone doesn't understand why I bring a Roku, this is why. Oh, it's also for situations like this where the remote says, stream your content, press menu and select Chromecast. But there is no Chromecast option in the menu. But in this case, I was lucky that switching HDMI inputs was a breeze. Internet access was aces. I got a solid 50 to 80 megabits downstream most of the time, and it was very reliable, complimentary, had good coverage in the room and throughout the property, and no captive portal and no attempt at upselling for faster speeds. I can't really ask for anything more than that. The last thing to look at is the pair of closets. One of them is pretty barren, but it has a safe in it that's just about the right size for a small or medium-sized laptop, but vertically. It's not really important, but does anyone know what this thing is? It takes batteries but has none, and there's a switch that says off and no. I mean, it's probably supposed to say on, but if the off is printed right side up, why is the on upside down? Random, but it's bugging me. It's positioned right above either a circuit breaker panel or lighting control panel, which to FB's credit is locked, unlike some other rooms I stayed in. The other closet holds all the usual hotel stuff. A lint roller and shoe shine pad are a nice touch, particularly as the shoe shine thing seems of needlessly high quality. Padded wooden hangers hold an enormous shoehorn. There's another bathrobe, the first one hangs in the bathroom, and above that is a clothes steamer. Down on the floor next to the luggage rack are a couple of pairs of slippers. And here's a photo of the laundry prices just to round things out. Oh, and the only other thing I looked at in the hotel was the Sundries shop, Morris & Co. They actually have one of the better selections of snacks and booze I've seen in Vegas hotels, and though far from cheap, everything is at least priced lower than the in-room minibar. All this stuff, the chips, chocolates, and 4 waters were $40. And that pretty much does it for my look at the Fontainebleau. The total cost for just the room without anything else shown in the video was $5,816. According to my credit card statements, I racked up about $300 in room charges because I paid $6,100 ultimately. Kinda wish I knew what that was for, but like I said, they ignored my request for a copy of a folio. We didn't get a chance to check out properly because there was a long line at the front desk and we had a plane to catch. So was it worth an average room rate of over $1,650 per night? Not really. The executive suite was clean, largely functional, spacious, and pleasant enough to stay in, but in my opinion, it's not quite refined enough to be acceptable at that price point. Right off the bat, the weird room layout and lack of windows in particular makes this substandard in the world of luxury suites. In fact, it's funny that they sell this suite in variants of great view or best view depending on how high a floor it's on. But really it's no view unless you walk over and stand directly in front of the window. Because not only is the window small, but it's set back so far into its little nook that you can't see out of it for most parts of the room. Not having a fully integrated lighting and automation control system puts it behind any modern high-end properties renovated in the last decade. The bathroom is outstanding in its blandness, because despite the tub and shower area being huge and literally central to the suite's design, the fittings are nothing beyond what you'd find at any random budget-friendly property. The toilets are also barely more than default tracked home fixtures, and in some parts of the suite it just feels like they forgot to put in furniture or decoration. The HVAC system was also nothing more than you'd find at a bare-bones hotel or motel, and though it might be something you don't usually think about, it felt particularly chintzy in this context. Oh, and no in-room coffee. I've said this before, but so-called luxury properties that can't even muster up one of the basic conveniences of a business hotel are doing their guests a disservice. Wait, I also just realized that I was charged a resort fee, even though the pool area had yet to open. I guess that's technically fair, because as with most hotels that tack on this bullshit fee, it doesn't even cover the pool. You know, an actual resort-type facility. It only goes towards simple amenities that, again, you'd find at any business hotel at no additional cost. Vinny stayed in the Noble Suite, which was only slightly smaller but had a far better view, bigger bedroom, extra full bathroom, a fully stocked minibar, and that little room service artifact. It was also about half the price that I paid at time of booking. Though in full disclosure, his room was comped, but I'm basing that last comment on the prices I saw for the Noble Suites when I was booking my own. So if you're looking for a suite at the FB and don't need to entertain 7 other people, the Noble Suite is much better value for money. The only tangible difference between the Noble and Executive is the large sectional couch and dining table. There's no difference in level of service or quality of fit and finish. So all told, I would absolutely stay at the Fontainebleau again, just in a room class with a price that better fits the standards. The property itself has a very pleasant atmosphere, and I like the subdued decor with flashes of ostentatiousness to grab your attention. This is particularly notable with the chandelier over the blue bar in the middle of the casino floor. The casino being well lit, open, airy, and modern. It's very much the polar opposite of the old Vegas style, as I was reminded when we stopped by the Luxor with its dim, low-ceiling Nicolas Cage vibes. The restaurants are all worth trying, Mother Wolf in particular being deserving of a trip from elsewhere on the Strip. And stop by Azul on the way to dinner. The spa is only available to hotel guests, but is a great facility and worth the price of a treatment for entry. I don't usually interact too much with the staff when I visit hotels, as I'm usually pretty low maintenance as far as that goes. However, the person that checked us in was approachable and friendly, as was everyone else I encountered when wandering around. Based on the general attitude and enthusiasm of the staff, both in the hotel and the food service venues, I get the impression that they're well paid or at least well treated by management. And I hope that is the case. This part on the Sphere isn't worthy of its own video, so I'm tacking it on as a sort of epilogue. I hadn't been back to Vegas since the opening of the Sphere, but I wanted to check it out, particularly after seeing this mega project's video on its construction. We reserved director seats tickets in advance for a showing of Postcard from Earth, the Darren Aronofsky house film. The director's seat package includes seating in section 306, arguably the best seats in the house as they're centered both horizontally and vertically to the screen, as well as use of the VIP entrance, access to a private lounge, a novelty t-shirt, and priority access to a humanoid robot for what that's worth. The VIP entrance and the lounge are good if, like us, you're not a fan of big crowds. The separate entrance is probably also a plus when things get busy at the Sphere. We got there kinda early, but as it got closer to showtime, the pavilion area got somewhat packed with long lines for the avatar scanners and lots of people yelling at the allegedly AI robots. At busier times of the year, it's probably even worse. From the VIP entrance, we were directed up to the lounge on the 3rd floor, which had a nice view of the pavilion below. Food was nothing fancy, but pretty decent popcorn, hummus, soft pretzels, and various condiments were on offer. There were self-service carafes of water, lemonade, and not sure what this is, actually. Alcohol was served at a couple of bars, all included with the price of admission. Wine was available from behind the bar as well. And here's the t-shirt pickup area if you wanted to take home a souvenir. Of course, that's all secondary to the show itself. The theater is massive with steeply set rows of seating, meaning that you should have a good view even if there's a giant sitting in front of you. We end up getting front row seats in section 306, which probably helped add to the immersion. As for the film itself, it was brilliantly shot and edited, doing a fantastic job of showing off the capabilities of the super high-resolution LED wall and the sound system. It mainly consisted of vignettes of both nature and human civilization, set against a thin plotline of presumably interstellar travelers. There's not too much to spoil plot-wise, but I'll leave it at that. Sort of like Planet Earth or Blue Planet, but with narration in a different style and less of it. It's not something I'd bother watching again at home if it were ever released on a streaming service, but as a showcase of the venue, it was quite captivating. Was it worth the $250 ticket price? Yes and no. It's one of those things where I'm glad I went and I saw it, but I don't feel the need to ever go back and see it again. At $40 or $50, maybe, but tickets start at $80 as of now for what are presumably the worst seats in the house. That being said, if I am going to have gone to the Sphere only once in my life, I'm glad we ponied up the extra money for the best seats. We had walked over to the Sphere, but it was cold out and we decided to get a ride back. On the way out, it seemed like everyone was headed over to the Uber pickup area, so we decided to hop onto one of the many waiting pedicabs. This was both a brilliant idea and a huge mistake. The 10-minute ride was quite enjoyable. What we should have done, and let this be a lesson to all of you that usually walk or take taxis like us, is we should have negotiated the price before setting off. It wasn't until about halfway through the ride that I noticed this. I mean, the guy wasn't even pedaling. It was an e-bike. Why it's like 5,000 times the price of a cab is beyond me, so I'm presuming we could have talked him down to a fraction of that for the short ride back to the FB. At the right price, it was worth it for the experience of jetting down the Vegas Strip without any traffic and with the wind in our faces. Well, that's my review of the Fontainebleau, or the Fontainebleau, or however it's pronounced.
Fontainebleau.
It was an interesting trip, seeing those two practically brand new artifices, 3 rainy and cloudy days, February weather and temperatures that were comparable to what we left in New York. Oh, and as a bonus from a plane spotting perspective, Air Force One was on the tarmac at Harry Reid. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you like this video, please consider subscribing, as it would help out the channel a lot, and tap on the channel name for more hotel reviews in Vegas and beyond.